Money is in consciousness, and it must be earned. Hello, this is Bob Proctor with another Power Principle from our Winner's Choice series. This Power Principle is on money, a delicate subject. It's a subject most people are reluctant to discuss. They are reluctant because speaking about it can attract severe criticism. However, you and I are brave souls, so let's wander into this misunderstood area of life. Lord Bacon gave us some valuable advice when he said money is a good servant, but a bad master. In developing our desire for money, we should also seek a balance of wisdom as well. Otherwise, the accumulation of wealth could bring with it the potential to distort our personality and rob us of our life. I have often thought it to be rather strange, and I should probably add sad, that the earning of money is not taught in our school systems anywhere in the world, even though money is a medium of exchange which is accepted and used worldwide. The frequent response to this kind of thinking is, why should we teach earning money as a subject in school? Everyone already understands how to earn money. However, that is not correct. The sad truth is that 97 out of every 100 people are born, they live and die without ever learning how to earn money. Their ignorance with respect to money is passed along from one generation to the next. Conversely, the 3 or 4% of our population who do understand how to attract wealth pass their prosperity consciousness from one generation to the next. It is time for the 97% group to wake up. If you are part of this group, understand you can learn how to earn money, all the money you want. And it is no more difficult than learning how to drive an automobile. The masses find it strange that there are people who have learned how to pilot rockets to the moon, but have not learned how to accumulate wealth. However, there is nothing strange about it. Being competent at one thing, regardless of what it is, does not mean that you are competent at everything. This message on money has not been made for everyone. It is intended for the 97 out of every 100 who want to earn money but have not yet learned how. This message has nothing to do with interest rates, investments, stocks, or bonds. This power principle is about the cause of wealth. Many years ago, George Bernard Shaw spoke out about money. He made a couple of statements which have caused numerous arguments. Permit me to share them with you. 1, it is the duty of every person to be rich. And 2, it is a sin to be poor. Well, what thoughts do those statements stir in your mind? What is your immediate reaction? So much time has passed since I first heard those statements, I do not remember if I reacted to them or if I sat back and objectively thought about them, wondering what Shaw meant. I probably reacted. Most people do. My reaction was very likely negative as well. I don't suppose it matters how I reacted since it was 20 or 30 years ago. However, you must admit, these are two very powerful statements. Statements you and I should understand if we are interested in earning money, especially if we are interested in earning money. Before we reject these statements as being ridiculous, analyze them. However, before we look at the statements, perhaps we should look at the person who made them. Knowing a little more about his life may provide some additional insight. George Bernard Shaw was born in Ireland in 1857. However, he lived his life, most of it, in England, after moving there when he was 20 years of age. He was a dramatist, a music critic, and an essayist. Shaw became very successful in his field. He was, in fact, one of the most important literary figures of the last century. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1925. You could very easily arrive at the conclusion, though, that a person making those statements had little concern for the poor, or that he was making fun of them. However, if you do the slightest amount of research, you will find that George Bernard Shaw was a strong supporter of the underdog. He was constantly attempting to improve their life. He was an early supporter of women's rights when that was not a popular behavior, and he attempted to bring about political and economic change through his plays. Because the subject matter of his plays was considered to be radical, it took years for them to gain any form of acceptance. Knowing this about the author, let's listen to those two statements again and attempt to understand them. 1, it is a sin to be poor. 2, it is the duty of every person to be rich. To properly understand what Shaw was saying, you must first have an open mind. Second, you must remain objective. And third, you definitely will require some understanding of the natural laws of the universe. These laws are frequently referred to as divine laws. One of the basic laws you must understand is the law which states everything is moving. Absolutely nothing rests. You are either moving ahead in life or you're going backwards. It's grow or die, create or disintegrate. You are becoming richer or poorer. Now there's a second law which is referred to in many different ways. Karmic law, sowing and reaping, cause and effect, action, reaction. How you refer to this law is of little importance, but the understanding of how it works is vitally important. The thoughts, feelings, and actions that you express in life are the seeds that you sow. The conditions, circumstance, and things that come into your life is the harvest you reap as a result of the seeds that you sow. Hold those thoughts for a moment while we investigate the deeper understanding of the words sin and money. Sin is transgression of the law. Violating the law is a sin, and the price of sin is death. That does not mean your heart will stop beating, but it does mean you will go backwards. Remember the law which states that you will either be creating or disintegrating. You'll grow or die. When you attempt to get without giving, you are trying to reap the harvest without sowing the seeds. It will not work. That, my friend, is a sin. You go backwards. Now, let's look at money. What is it? Money is a reward you receive for the service you render. The more valuable the service, the greater the reward. Attempting to get money without providing service is a violation of the law. George Bernard Shaw believes you and I were put here on the planet to serve one another. Thinking of ways we can be of greater service will enable us to grow intellectually and spiritually. It is our duty to serve, and money is reward we receive for that service. If a person has received their money in an unlawful manner, don't think for a second that they are on the right track. They must pay the price. You reap what you sow. You might see the money they have and the things money will buy, yet never see the price they pay. But they will pay. That is the law. Every thinking person will agree that in the light of the law, what Shaw said is correct. However, that is where the problem begins for most people. They do not think. And if a person is not thinking, Shaw's statements would appear very callous, even ridiculous. Personally, I believe Shaw made those statements the way he did to provoke people into thinking. The Apostle Matthew in the Christian religion did essentially the same thing 1900 years before Shaw. Matthew stated, "To him who has shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him who does not have, even that which he has shall be taken away." At first glance, that sure doesn't sound very fair. Matthew is saying that the rich will get richer and the poor poorer. People who believe that this is unfair are people who view abundance as something that is being doled out. To them, Matthew's statements would have to appear grossly unfair. If, however, you see abundance as something one attracts, the entire picture would change and it would be very fair. The prosperous person will be thinking prosperous thoughts and attracting more of the same, while the poor person will be thinking thoughts of lack and limitation. They too, by law, will attract more of the same. Quite simply, what Shaw and Matthew were emphasizing was the importance of our own responsibility in the quest for abundance. Abundance is something we magnetize ourselves to. We draw it into our life. That is abundance in every aspect of our life. Business associates, friends, everything we want will come into our life by law, not luck. You are either attracting or repelling good. It is your own consciousness that ultimately determines your results. I was on the telephone just hours ago with my mentor, Leland Valvandual. He said something during our conversation which stuck in my mind. He said, "The spirit awaits direction from the soul." Permit me to digress for a moment, because there's a great lesson here about receiving. The entire conversation I had with Val had to do with a very large project I am working on to help him. I was giving to him when he made that statement during our conversation. It is a statement of truth which I will benefit from for the rest of my life. My new understanding, which has resulted from his explanation of the statement, will enable me to be of greater service to you and tens of thousands of other people worldwide. Now, think about what I have just shared with you. Who was giving and who was receiving? It will not take long before you realize we were both doing both. We were giving and receiving simultaneously. Every time I speak with Al, I learn something. I became aware of that many years ago. The man is wise. After you have a conversation with a person who has wisdom, do as I do. Be quiet and then ask yourself what that person said. 9 times out of 10, the lesson, which was hidden in the conversation, will surface in your consciousness. The Spirit awaits direction from the soul. That is power. Val's statement contains the secret to everything you could ever want. You will see this when you consider that you do not have a soul, you are a soul. And when you consider that Spirit, which is omnipresent, is waiting for direction from the soul. Think about that. Really think, and the lesson will begin to unfold. Now, I said earlier, and I repeat, money is in consciousness, and it must be earned. That is a statement you must understand if you truly desire to attract money into your life. I personally consider Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, to be one of the most complete works ever compiled on the accumulation of wealth. I have carried the same copy of that book with me for over 30 years. I read a bit of it almost every day. In the publisher's preface of the book, it is stated, Think and Grow Rich conveys the experience of more than 500 individuals of great wealth who began from scratch and with nothing to give in return for riches except thoughts, ideas, and organized plan. It clearly states that this book contains the entire philosophy of money making. Now, the point I want to bring to your attention is this. Think and Grow Rich has 15 chapters, and not one of those chapters is titled Money. In fact, the word money is not even mentioned in the title of any one of the chapters. The last chapter has 8 words in it, but money is not one of them. There's another great book about money. It's one written by G. Donald Walters titled Money Magnetism. Mr. Walters has 14 chapters in his book, and not one is titled Money. The word does appear in the title of chapter 9, but listen to how it is used. How earning money can promote spiritual growth. Robert Russell's great book about earning money, You Too Can Be Prosperous, contains 8 chapters, and money does not appear anywhere in any of the 8 titles. A number of years ago, I wrote a book, You Were Born Rich. Sam Kalanick, who is the co-chairman of Mattal Botanical International Limited, has ordered between 35,000 and 40,000 copies of my book from Bantam Books in New York. Sam is a beautiful person and is one of the wealthiest men I know. Sam uses my book like I use Napoleon Hill's book. He has tens of thousands of people in his company, and he is constantly encouraging them to study You Were Born Rich. There are 10 chapters in my book. It, like Donald Walters' book, Money Magnetism, has money mentioned only once in the first chapter titled Me and Money. Why do you suppose none of these books talk about money when the purpose of the book is to assist the reader in accumulating wealth? They do not talk about money for the same reason a farmer does not spend time explaining how to bring in the harvest when he is teaching his son how to plant a seed. There is a season for sowing and there is a season for reaping, but you never do both in the same season. Be quiet and listen carefully to what I am going to say. The paper you fold and place in your purse or pocket is not money. It is paper with ink on it. It represents money, but it is not money. Money is an idea. The earning of money has nothing to do with this paper stuff. It has to do with consciousness. That is precisely why all of these great authors who wrote books, which people claim helped them earn millions of dollars, never wrote about money. Sam Kalanick probably knows as much about earning money as anyone I know. If you listen to him...
The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?